Today's topic is called Media Movers. And it's about artists who work in different mediums because they're not satisfied with just one. And we're going to hear a little bit about the evolution of work and also the combination, like Mary, everything's combined. You do two different styles and you just keep growing in your style. So today we have with us Tyson Snow. Look, I'm going to sit down because we have an extra chair. Tyson Snow has joined us this year for the first year. He's from Utah, and he actually helped participate in our first series about monuments because he's done a few of those, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And next to him we have the wonderful Mary Giddings Axton, and she's one half of Mary and Joe Axton. I like to call him Joe Giddings Axton though, because I think it's only fair. And so much fun, so much talent. And then on the other end for me is Carrie Henry. Oh, and Mary's from right here in town, and Carrie is also from Utah and Bountiful, which is just beautiful. Beautiful, Bountiful. So we're going to hear from each of them. And we always like to start by hearing, and I think I'll start with Carrie, kind of how you became an artist and how long you've been doing the show. And then we'll move into talking more about the topic. But you have a pretty good story of you kind of knew you were an artist from the get-go.
Yeah, my mom was a professional dancer, and we grew up without TV. So it's not like they couldn't afford one. They just said, we don't want a TV in our house, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But anyway, so I grew up drawing and painting and drawing and painting. And so my mom really encouraged me on that. And then Utah has a very good program for young artists where you have a lot of contests. So I sold my first painting when I was 15, and I won so much in my awards that I said, that's what I'm going to do. So at 19, I got a scholarship to New York City and went to Pratt Institute. That's basically it.
That's a lot.
A lot.
Hello? You here? Hello? Yeah. Okay. I've been an artist my whole life that I can remember. My grandmother was an artist. My mom sent me to art camp my whole life. I started in lapidary, and I'd go to the Superstitions, and we'd get rocks, and we'd cut and polish and have show and tell every Friday. And then shortly after that, I started doing stained glass and ceramics. And then I started painting. I majored in college in printmaking. I was a lithographer. I drew on large limestones. And then right when it came time to graduate, I went back into school and did a degree in painting. And then again, when I was about to graduate, I went back for sculpture. And I did not want to leave because I didn't know how I was going to make a living as an artist, and that's what I wanted to do. And right away out of college, I got hired by an art factory and became a working artist, and I have been one ever since.
You sound like an overachiever.
Kind of.
Overachiever.
I knew, though, a lot of people become artists and figure out a way of making a living. I wanted to make a living as an artist, so I kind of approached it a little differently. I did not want to work at the bank anymore. I did not want to babysit. I just wanted to make art and figure out how I could make a living at it.
What was your name again?
Mary Giddings.
Look for G.
Hello, my name is Tyson Snow. I've always drawn for as long as I can remember. I've drawn. So, in fact, my mother's kept. I think maybe like most parents do. They keep their kids' drawings in a box in the closet. So I found some of those. I think that I have a lot of interests. I see things, I find beauty in a lot of things, and I tend to want to do something that I see that I think is great. And so, I don't know if that's a problem, but that's taken me into different mediums. I have ADD, or at least the doctors told me that my parents told me. And the doctors said that I had a hard time concentrating in school. So with I think with the arts too, with the arts as well, I have that same short attention span. I want to try different things. And so I always drawing, and I think the fundamentals for just every medium is drawing. So I was naturally able to, at least for me, go into painting and into sculpture as well. So I think like most of us too in school, you're introduced to earthenware clay that gets fired in the kiln and all of those things. And I always enjoyed that a lot. When it came to bronzing and things or stone sculpture, that was more expensive. I couldn't do that. Up front, it was too difficult, so I stuck to drawing for a long time until I could kind of work my way to a point where I could afford to cast or learn how to make my own molds and make castings.
I think ADD is a good thing, don't you? It means you've got good range, you try new things. Squirrel, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So the heart of today's discussion is about, why you're attracted to different media when a lot of artists, although you may learn all of the fundamentals if you attend school, many artists settle in on just one particular type. And Mary, you and Joe both do everything in the mixed media which goes into your work. And can you share a little bit about why you have that desire to create every piece of it? Or whatever you feel like sharing.
It happened pretty organically.
That's a bad microphone.
Hello? Okay. It happened pretty organically. I had made a lot of abstract pieces on paper. I didn't like them. I was saving them because there's parts of them were pretty. And finally one day I ripped them all into squares and began to stack them and make collages out of them. And they started selling. So I did a lot of this. When I sold, everything I sold was unframed. I would just work on canvas or paper and with these big paper collages, and I'd roll them up and ship them off to a gallery. And then when the market kind of crashed in 2008, I needed a finished piece. And I couldn't work on paper. And once I started working on the wooden panels, I realized it didn't have to be paper anymore. All the things that we did, I had always worked with clay. I taught little kids clay. I've been working with glass for years. Suddenly, all the things that I did could come together in one piece. So if I do a sketch of it, now I can, and I don't need to go to the junkyard to find parts that fit it. I can make all the parts myself, which I like to make them myself. I carve the clay, and my husband bends and welds the metal, and I don't know. I fire all the clay. And I also do glass, and I fire that in my kilns. I have 4 kilns at my house. And my favorite artists, Picasso, Gerhard Richter, that they work in many mediums. They're not married to one thing. And the artists who do I've seen artists, Jackson Pollock, for instance, they kill themselves. You paint the same thing forever. You're not allowed to grow. And then you get depressed and drink yourself to death, it seems. I am always learning new things. I'm always excited. It's always different. And I'm happy. I'm not going to kill myself.
That makes me happy. I love you. True joy comes from doing the work you love, right?
It does.
So I definitely will encourage you at the end to visit each of the artist studios, but Mary and Joe's studio is right next to the
Here's
cafe.
one of my pieces.
And here's one of her pieces. But it's truly, is this working? It's truly one of the few of our mixed media artists that literally do every aspect of the work and always evolving.
But I don't slice the rocks. I used to. When I was a kid, I was an Arizona rock hound, and I used to do all my own rocks, but I don't any longer.
Okay. We'll let you off the hook for that.
So, Carrie, you are also one of our more creative, as far as creating different mediums. You're always growing and evolving. And a few years ago, you came with the textured canvas like we see at the end, and then you kind of kept evolving. And I would love for you just to share about why your creative journey has taken you that way.
Well, it's interesting. Mary said two things that were very, very interesting to me. She said, I tried something other than the collage and it sold. So that's, every year when I come, on the right, the big painting is what I came into the tent with, and that's always evolved in its own way. But each year I come and I always I do something new. Like one year I did a butterfly series, which I still do, just to see, like what Mary's saying, to see if it will sell. Maybe it will give me a new clientele. And she also said another very interesting thing. She said the top selling artist, that would be Gerhard Richter. Okay, he has 4 distinct styles and he sold 200 million last year. That kind of makes you think. So why not, as an artist, I want to have more decks of cards in the game. I'd like to appeal to a wider variety of people, and plus it's a lot of fun. So this is another one of my pieces. I tried a little metal piece last year. Oops, I'm going to trip. And this is one this year. And people come in, it's got inset glass, and it's a lot of fun. I still do everything like that over there, but I have a whole metal section that has brought in a whole new clientele. So it's a lot of fun to explore. It makes me feel creative. I can go back and forth. And I love problem solving. But if I see a really kind of cool house, I would say, what would they like in there? What could I do? What could be interesting? What has anybody else not done? And I love problem solving. Where can I put it? How can I shape it? How can I cut it? In any type of material. And I have a sheet of paper that thick of all these ideas. Like Tyson, I think on ADD, I just haven't got to them all yet. But there's plenty of things, so that's a good idea. But Mary hit on a lot.
You're also known for not having straight edge shapes.
Right.
Can you talk about, like, perfect example right there?
Yeah, I right now, I'm fascinated by having a sculpture on the wall. And it's kind of like, instead of like another rectangle, which I've done, why not have something a completely different shape? I just love that idea. Like my wife would hang up gears in our house, or she'd have like a sculpture that was just embedded rocks inside a tree. In other words, I go, whoa, wait a second now, that makes you stop. And when I first started doing this tent 8 years ago, I would count the seconds for people to walk by you, for them to stop and look in your booth. And it used to be 3.5 seconds. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, and they were gone. It's now down to 2.5 seconds. I've counted this year. So unless you've got something in there that makes them stop, off they go. So anyway, I'm always trying to say, what can I do that's intriguing?
The things they do to entertain themselves, huh? Okay, so Tyson.
Yeah.
You are an extraordinary classical.
Alter piece.
Yes,
It's
please.
on
Yes.
loop.
So we could maybe even pass that around. Are you okay if we pass that?
Yeah.
I got talk a little bit about why you love painting, which starts with drawing, and then we'll go into your
Why I love painting that, what? That's,
Well, drawing was your first love, but
oh, okay.
and she's new.
I think for me, the first thing is an emotional, it's all about emotion. And maybe you're capturing a moment in time or a feeling. So I think that's what's spoken to me most in art is images of, well, something I can relate to, images of people in different situations or in a moment of reflection. So I think for me, I want to try and capture that in my own work and share it with other people. So whether it's for me, whether it's in drawing or painting or sculpture, it's something that can be captured and shared. Universal thoughts and feelings that people can identify with almost instantly, and either see part of themselves in it, or someone that they love, or just simply something beautiful.
Can you share a little bit about the piece you're currently working on?
The painting?
The sculpture?
Yes,
yes,
I can, sure. So right now in my booth, if you were to come by, you'll see a sculpture that's in the works. It's in clay. I put a little write-up on it so that people can kind of understand where I'm coming from. I'm trying to create art that's on a little bit of a deeper level, and I know sometimes it's difficult to do that and get your message across. So I hope not to give a wrong impression when people see it. Sometimes they'll look up and immediately make a snap judgment and keep walking. So along the lines of what I described before is what I'm trying to put into this sculpture, and it's a very personal piece for me right now. I thought it's a little on the cuff, going through a difficult time in my life, and so this image came to mind immediately when I was driving home during the show. So I think maybe a few days later I got it down on paper, a sketch. And then I did a little mini sketch in clay so you could see that in my space. And then from there I did the larger piece. And so it is two figures that represent two halves of one person. Years ago, I saw these beautiful statues that the Greeks sculpted in marble of two men wrestling. But they were called duality of man. So the idea was that man sort of has the struggle within himself. And I identified with that. I thought, I think all of us kind of feel this sort of struggle. But lately with this difficult period in my life, it's not so much a struggle I have within myself, it's one half having to sort of lift up the other half that feels like it can no longer stand or show up. But life requires that we still show up. And although at times I feel like the ground is falling out from underneath me, the stronger half is having to step in and pick up the side pick up the other half, I guess, that's falling, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm working on now. I almost took it out. I thought, this is too personal. It's making me feel very vulnerable, even more so than I do already. And then I thought, no, my experience is not unique. I'm not the only one that's ever felt this. I'm not the only one that's gone through this kind of a situation. Whether it's a divorce, whether it's a loss of a loved one, I think in our human experience we experience tragedy, which changes us, which makes us stronger. And I thought, this is again, kind of like you see throughout my work, whether it's drawing, painting, sculpture, it's something that is universal. It's something that we all experience. If we've lived any amount of time, we've experienced them.
Thank you. Nothing like me making you extra vulnerable, huh?
Yeah.
But isn't that great? I mean, it's so nice to be able to express your feelings through your work, and you know that's going to connect with others, and that is a true gift, I think, and we see it in everyone's work, whether it be, like Carrie's known for writing poetry and words, and that personal touch and the connection is so strong, and being vulnerable to share that sort of thing sometimes leads to the most magnificent masterpieces that artists will ever create. So.
Well, and I will say too, I just read something recently that struck me, and that was that even in general, as artists, we create these things that have never existed before and put them out before the world, almost like our children, I would say. And so that just by that very fact, you're already putting ourselves in a very vulnerable position. It's,
our children need good homes, by the way.
Yeah.
There's always a home for a piece of art, for sure. Sherry, you have done some collaboration work. I mean, all of you have collaborated at times, like you, in a sense, with your mold making have collaborated, but how do you each feel challenged by or inspired by your fellow artists to elevate your game, and or working with our collectors, who I'd love to see the interaction? And so many of the ideas in the tent in the celebration of fine art come from the interaction with collectors. Do you maybe have a story to share about that?
We've got 3 mics here.
Hello? What was the question?
How are you influenced by your fellow
you know,
artists or your collectors?
I collaborate with my husband. So,
That's enough, right?
yeah, right there. And we don't work side by side. We work in different studios and we pass the work. We kind of talk. If there's something I feel strongly about, I'll say. But we pass it back and forth, and we both paint, and Joe does metal and I do clay, and we sort of pass them back and forth until they're finished, until one of us feels strongly that they're finished. So I enjoy the collaboration. Often a piece, I have an idea it's going to go this way, and it goes completely another direction because Joe's hands got in it. So, and for me, it's a lot of fun and a challenge. And you know, and I love what you were saying about your work. You want it to be universal, but the thing I love so much about your work is that it's so personal, and it is both. I mean, that's an amazing thing to do.
We're talking about the forum is mixed media, like masters of all media, and it's really interesting how every second at this tent, I mean, I get people coming in, they say, "Oh, you've been here so long," and I go, "No, I want to take every second." I'll be working on a piece back home, and I'm just stuck, and I'll get here at the tent, and I'll go up to Saeed, who's not here anymore, and I say, "What glue works with glass?" And he looks at me and he says, "Goop." I go, "What?" He says, "Goop. It's G-O-O-P." I go, "Oh, it's a real product. You can get it at Home Depot, and it works." It just literally changed my life. I can now do a whole element of my work now since I learned that from Saeed. And where there, tons of you in here, we love to collaborate with each other. How do you do this? How do you do that? And it's just amazing what you can come up with. And then you'll see a collector. They'll have, I love this, where they have a round wall. Last year I had a round wall, curved wall. And how do I curve a piece around the entire wall? Again, I love to problem solve. And if an artist only thinks in rectangles, they go, "I can't do that." For me, it's like, yeah, I can do it. I can't really, but I just make it up somehow. So I'll just tell them I can do it, and then I figure it out in the meantime. That usually works out.
One time, my husband Jake can do pretty much anything, and I was going to get him cards that said, "Yeah, I can do that." Because anybody would ask, "Can you do this?" "Yeah, I can do that." And he would figure it out. Yeah, just like you. So you can use that line. So, okay, Tyson, how has your work evolved since you came to the Celebration of Fine Art? And I think we could pass around. That one's too heavy to pass around?
What is it?
The sculpture?
Oh, maybe.
I can hold
You
it up.
can come up and see a sculpture later.
I can hold it up.
Yeah.
And what I like, one thing with Tyson is every time I walk by, multiple times a day, I'll come by at one point and he's drawing or painting. I'll come by like an hour later and he's got his hands in clay. So again, maybe the ADD, but look what the result is. So have you felt influence since you joined us?
Absolutely, yeah. I think what I can say about work that I do, work that I want to continue to do now, is actually more true to myself. Again, it was a reiteration of the fact that I need to be true to me. Like this piece that's in clay now, if you come by and see it, these are pieces that I would have been a little scared to do, maybe timid, and think, who in the world is going to get this? Who's going to want it? But what I found is that by just going with it and throwing fear out the window and kind of moving forward with things like that, my kind of gut reaction was that people will respond to it better than some other things that I really thought were beautiful and that would speak to a certain market. So that, again, this show was fantastic for me in the fact that it's another reminder that I need to be who I am. I need to create what my gut tells me to.
As collectors, isn't that what you connect with too? Is that true raw emotion? And of course, we all have certain things we like, but when you see that reality again, so what would you say to somebody? Maybe we have some artists watching or here today. What would you say to encourage them to stretch the limits and try new things instead of staying in the rectangle box or in the collage?
I work in a lot of 12-inch squares, and I always have worked in squares. And a customer came here and bought a group of them for a long niche they had, but the niche was concave, and we couldn't hang them. And we tried really long nails, but it wasn't going to work. So my husband thought, on the spot, of putting a rod down them and hanging them. And suddenly we had a new thing that we could hang the art. It could hang from your ceiling, it could hang from your wall, it could go in your niche, it could go on your porch. And everything changed just from running into a problem, like you said, and then trying to solve it. So, and what was the question you were I really do have ADD.
I forgot.
And you forgot too. About what?
What would you say to a young, or any, an
I
artist,
don't know how to keep
somebody
like this.
challenge them to try something new?
For me, everything I learn new is like a new language, and I feel like it keeps your brain moving and it keeps you thinking. And I would encourage everybody to take art classes, even if you don't become an artist, just to see what it is. What it feels like.
How many of you have taken art classes? I know you were inspired to learn jewelry after coming here to watch the jewelry. You signed up for a jewelry class, so yeah, definitely everybody. Go ahead, Carrie.
But we have a motto in our family. We have two mottos in our family. One is go big, and the other one is, and all our kids know these growing up, try something new. So when we'd go skiing, we're from Utah, you had to do a new trick every single time. That's just part of life. And sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. I learned pretty quick that after you turn 40, don't ever use the phrase, hey kids, watch this. Just don't go there after 40. It's not going to be pretty. But it's just part of our lives as the Henrys, is that we just always try something new. And I think it's a good metaphor for anybody, especially here at this tent. We have the opportunity of so many people going by, always have a new little piece out. And you never know if it attracts attention or not. I remember Jen Brains one year, she had these little, remember the aspen sculptures you had? And I go girl, she's got these cool kind of aspen sculptures. Did they work? No, they didn't work at all. But the thing is, she was trying it. I mean, there's artists in here that have absolutely beautiful work, and it doesn't sell. You just have to keep at it until you hit that mark where people like it and it sells and it's new. But just in any part of your lives, try a new exercise, try a new dinner, something, anything that it keeps you fresh. So a good metaphor.
Yeah. What would you say to it?
I think to that, I would just say this life seems to be all about growing and having experiences. So if you don't put yourself out there and try something that puts you in an uncomfortable position, or what would you call it, a discomfort zone, then you won't grow. But you never know until you try. And oftentimes I'll sort of put myself in a position where I'm like, I've done this, I don't want to do it, but you end up learning something and maybe even gaining a new skill that you would have never otherwise had you not put yourself in an uncomfortable position. So it's all part of growing, part of life.
Like the Greens would be on the panel.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard because they don't all like to do public speaking, but you guys always do great. Is that they're not afraid to try new things and evolve and we've just seen the evolution. And the ones who only want to do with the one thing that they came in to begin with, that they're still doing the exact same painting, they're not growing. So I think part of the magic here, more than any place, is, you know, like going over to ask somebody, how can I do this better? And that kind of camaraderie that we experience here. And even things like Bryce Pettit, who is a sculptor. Was it last year? He started doing beautiful jewelry in his sculpture, so scaled way down. And so now you can have an original sculpture hanging around your neck or your wrist, or like such as, is that Jack or Jill?
This is Jack.
Jack.
And it's
Jill's
Sterling.
laying down. It's
So
Sterling.
Sterling. So, you know, we only have a few people here on the panel, but as you walk around, there's so many examples of artists who evolved, and then artists who pushed the envelope. And one of our artists who couldn't be with us today, but Seth Fairweather, who's in the back in the corner, he does glass, he does blown glass, he does cast glass, he does metal, and he does clay. Did I miss anything? And sometimes all of those things are combined, and sometimes they're standalone. He's got some pieces out there in the courtyard too. And much of that happens just from artists sitting around talking amongst themselves and coming up with these crazy ideas. And then there's ones that just do it all by themselves. But Carrie, last year you and Greg Sievers collaborated kind of along with a client and created a whole series of, well, can you tell them about that? Because it combined the metal names and combination.
Yeah, we had a client that had a beautiful home and he liked opera, and going up his stairs, he had all these old opera posters. And he said, you know, I like Greg Sievers' painting and I love your sculptural quality. How about we do a collaboration? And we ended up doing, I think it was 12 opera sculpture / paintings. And it was a lot of fun. Like Aida was about an Egyptian princess, and the top was in the shape of a pyramid, and it had cut out letters. It was a lot of fun. And it was his idea, the client's idea, to do it. And then we just ran with it after that. And then it was really fun after we got done. He was so pleased with it. I half joked to him, hey, how about we do Broadway? And we're doing Broadway next for his entertainment room. So that's a lot of fun. It's funny when people say, the clients say, I have an idea. You go, whoa. But sometimes it's just right on the button. It's a really good idea. Others not so much, but lately Don has been on a roll, so that's a good one.
And some of you might have seen those. We had them displayed out here at the front for the first couple of weeks of the show because they were so unique, and he was willing to share them, and then he let the guys install them. But that was really creative because Greg would paint and then he would send you started.
I would do all the background and all the structure and all the letters, and then send it to him, and he'd paint it, and then I'd do more after that. So back and forth.
But at the very end, when Greg was the last one to have them, and he brought them down, and this was a beautiful thing for me to witness, is that Greg didn't sign the pieces until Carrie was with him to do it, because they were true joint collaboration pieces, and he said, we need to sign them at the same time, you know, to finish it off.
And our client was so worried. He'd heard about collaborators like Gilbert and Sullivan and Rogers and Hammerstein that hated each other. So he thought for sure we're going to divide Carrie Henry and Greg Sievers are going to hate each other. It's like nothing could be further from the truth. It was easy as could be. Whereas, even Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice broke up. But Greg and I are still together.
Nice.
Yeah, Simon and Garfunkel. I think the visual arts is a little easier, less temperamental. Since all of you work in different mediums and different styles, in fact, do you have anything that's a favorite thing to do that you would do over and over if you could only choose one? What would you choose? I'm going to say I'll keep picking on there.
I think I would. I don't know what that's a tough one. I don't want to get like Jackson Pollock. And
Oh, no.
I love painting portraits. I love landscapes, and I love abstracts. So I can't choose. How about you?
It's still out there. I'm searching. It's that U2 song. You know?
And you?
I think for me, I like it all. I feel like there are things that I can express with sculpture that I can't with painting, and vice versa. If I'm being honest, well, let's put it this way. Sculpture comes very naturally to me. Painting is hard. So I want to naturally go to sculpture because painting, but we were talking again about putting yourself in an uncomfortable position so that you can grow. So I think if I had to choose, I would go with sculpture because it just seems my thing, but most naturally my thing.
This is an interesting thing, by the way, because a lot of people say, oh, you can do that? And I just got to tell clients, like when we're hanging stuff in your house or you're walking in the tent, there's no art police. They're not going to come into your house and say, you shouldn't hang it that way. Everybody, there's no art police. If you want to do a particular type of art, just do it. Just do it well and hang the things the way you want.
The good thing is we don't really have to choose. We can do it all, and we can have all kinds of art. How many of you have a nice variety of styles in your collection? Yay, I love that. We don't want to get too stuck in a rut. So, and again, the good news is we don't have to choose. We can do it all. Absolutely. So, do we have any questions? Since we have a smaller panel today, we don't have as many things, but I might, usually we get some good questions from our audience on. You can ask them anything you want.
About art.
About art. I had a guy the other day that owned a restaurant, and he said, I train my people to never walk up and say, how's everything? Because he said, how would they know how everything is? All they're doing is eating food. So yeah, we want to stick to the things that they know. But here's your chance, Rob.
Just ask me.
Yeah.
So you were talking about how your art evolves. You don't want to commit suicide. So, is there anything you can expect for maybe next year, or things that are in the works that you haven't yet even thinking about, but haven't brought to the market yet?
Yeah.
Good question for the audience
Right now,
outside.
I'm working with some concrete and some concrete forms, and I haven't gotten it to the point where I'll bring it in, but I did work with concrete in college. Things have changed tremendously since I was in college, though, so I will have concrete. I will be throwing that into my mix.
So for anyone watching, the question was, are there new ideas brewing that you plan to do in the future? So we'll look for that from you next year.
Yeah.
For me, well, I can't say specifically, but there will be some new things. It's hard to say. Like right now, paintings and sculpture are both sold equally, so I probably won't maybe lean one way or the other, but definitely more paintings. But I have thought about some mixed media stuff too, so it's hard to say for sure.
By the way, one really cool thing that you have, we love portraiture, which obviously you can paint a portrait, but he also does these fabulous bas relief. Do you have that over in your studio that they can see?
Yes.
So if you have a loved one that you want to have an amazing portrait to keep forever, consider that they're fabulous. So
It could be your pet fish if you want. It could be.
you're so generous.
I know.
Carrie, you're always got something new. What's
Yeah, I'm
up?
going to do robots. Killer robots from Japan. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do any robots. I'm sorry if I got anybody's hopes up. But, I'm really curious about this idea. Maybe Bryce Pettit gets this a lot, but you go, my walls are full. And I don't know if they ever say that to Bryce Pettit or Paul Reimer, but I'm really curious about trying a cool little sculpture element. And then what would I sit it on? Well, I want to design a table for that. So that's what I'm going to do. Because so when people say, my walls are full, I'll just turn around and go, voila, killer robots.
Good question, thank you. I thought I saw somebody else question. Another one, please.
I'm just curious, this mixed media is very trial and error in some sorts. What have been some failures that you have
Oh, good question. What failures have you had in experiencing with your mixed media? Good question. And if we don't have failures, we're not growing. Oh, look, they
I've
have no
never
failures.
failed.
No, I
Yeah.
have failures. I'm sure.
No. I did try one thing, and I don't know if anyone saw earlier on, I have these white pencil on blackboard drawings, and they're pretty fine-tuned drawings. And again, because my weakness is painting, I feel, I tried I thought it would be a great idea to glaze like oil or glaze color over top of these drawings, and that didn't work out so well. So I don't know, it has an interesting look, but I'm not sure anyone would want to buy it.
This is a really good story, a failure, absolute complete failure. I was trying a type of abstract art where I had imprinted leaves into oil paint. And I went up to people and I said, "Oh, what do you think of this?" And the first one said, "Oh, it's great." And then I went to a really famous artist and he said, "Oh, these are great." And then I went to one more person and it was a gallery owner and she said, "These are trite, make them better." I mean, okay, and dummy me, who did I listen to? I listened to the famous artist, and I went ahead and did all these paintings of leaves, and I had a one-man show in Park City, and I didn't sell a single thing. And I should have listened to the harsh critic. And so be aware of that. Don't go down a road too far until you really get a gut, honest, harsh opinion. My daughter calls it the blood pact, where you say, "Okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat or worry about your feelings. This isn't good." All artists and people, we got to know people like that will be honest with us. And I should have listened more to my critic and not gone that. But that was a complete failure that I should have learned from.
And by the way, his daughter is a magnificent artist as well. Apple doesn't fall far. Okay, Mary.
I did some portraits in glass that I would cut these glass sheets to 6 inches, and then I would do a painting of your dog or my kid or whatever, and then I would lay the glass on that and I'd paint the darks, and then I'd lay another piece of glass on it and paint the grays, and I just kept doing that until I got maybe 10 of these little paintings. Then I'd put them out in my kiln and fuse them all. Then I stacked them with clear glass in between them and made a brick and soaked that. Now, these things are in the kiln for maybe 30 hours. And all this time spent. And by the time I was done, I had a piece that was 6 inches square, about this thick, and I could sell it for, $150. So it wasn't a profit center, but they were really pretty. So my house is filled with some pretty nice failures.
Nothing wrong with that, as long as you're enjoying them. Good questions. So we invite each of you to take the time to go into their studios and see for yourself up close what they do. Maybe some of you are shy and you'll be willing to ask questions one-on-one, but really just want to thank each one of you. So many of you have come to every Friday series, and we appreciate that. And if it's your first time, welcome. We'll do the same series next year, same time, same place.